Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Wilmarie Newton, and I'd like to thank you for joining us for today's webinar. Today, we will start by answering some of the questions that were submitted during our first webinar that we did not have time to answer. Therefore, please hold your questions until the end of the presentation, at which time we will get through as many as time allows. You can find the original webinar on CABE's website under Professional Development. If you have further questions after the webinar has ended, please feel free to email me and I will forward them to the appropriate person that can answer them. Please note that this webinar is being recorded and will be archived on CABE's website under Professional Development. And now I'd like to introduce Patrice McCarthy, Executive Director and General Counsel for CABE.
Thanks, Wilmarie, and good afternoon, everyone. We are glad that we are able to provide part 2 to focus on the legislation around reading and around the implementation process. I do encourage any of you who did not listen to our first webinar to go back. As Wilmarie indicated, it is archived because that gives you the whole background for this legislation, some of the data behind the science of reading, and that will be, I think, very informative to you because we're not going to cover that piece again today. We're really going to just focus on the questions that you had submitted. We did try, and we had 105 questions at the end of the first webinar, and we are very grateful to our colleagues at the State Department of Education, Irene Parisi and Melissa Hickey, for their willingness to look at those questions. We tried to consolidate them and categorize them a little bit, and that's what the focus is going to be this afternoon. So I'm going to turn it over to Irene.
Thank you, Patrice. Thank you so much for bringing us back. Again, here we are, Melissa and I, partnering to make sure that we can provide you with the information that you need so that our districts and our colleagues out there are successful in this process and in this initiative. So there was a question related, and you know what, maybe we should just introduce the structure of the slide deck, Melissa, perhaps, so that there's an understanding of how we're going to flow through this. So if you don't mind, if you can just share the structure of the slide deck.
Sure. So thank you so much. Thank you also to Patrice and Wilmarie for putting this together today. We so deeply appreciate that. So what we decided to do was to take the questions that Patrice kindly shared with us and put them into a format. So you'll see the questions that were posed, and then right after will be slides that will assist in answering the questions that were posed. So they will flip-flop from questions to answers. Some of the answers will go over a couple of slides, so it'll extend beyond one slide. But we're hoping that everything we present today answers those questions that were posed previously. So I'll turn it back to Irene.
Thank you, Melissa. So I may have to do a lot of reading to the group, but as illustrated here, one of the questions presented and the topic is model curricula. And as everyone knows, we've been working feverishly and in an excited way on developing model curricula. And so we want to clarify a few points. But here presented is, at any point is the state going to be offering an approved curriculum model as opposed to just the program, since the legislation says an approved curriculum or program, not just as an approved program. A lot of words there. Yes, the words seem to be being used synonymously and they are different. And then the other question here is, when will K-3 state model curriculum be completed and how will it align with this current initiative? So those were two key questions. And so we wanted to remind everyone that the open review process did provide that opportunity for districts and/or publishers to submit their curriculum models or programs. And really those submissions have determined what has been and will be reviewed for approval and inclusion on the statewide list. And oh, I have a visitor. Melissa, can you continue? It's a very important visitor. Melissa, if you can continue. I'm sorry.
Sure. So, so here you can see the answers to the model curricula, and I will advance to the next slide. Pardon, I seem to be having some problems advancing to the next slide. There we go. All right, there were some questions around the assessments. Is there a list of all considered reading programs and universal screeners that have been evaluated, and specific information about why certain ones were not on the final list? And also not directly related to the waiver, but is there an ongoing process to review newer assessment tools, programs that would be available to districts? Some of these questions you will see twice because they cover not only the programs, but also the universal screeners. So in response to the universal screeners, we have many slides to share with you. And I see that Irene is back. Irene, did you want to share around the screening, the reading assessments?
Sure, and I think we all know that this has been a process that's been around for a while, and really the intent of it is to put in the hands of our teacher and district colleagues an approved menu of really research-based assessments so that we can appropriately screen our learners to then determine what is the need and to match that intervention with the need. So here, some of our answers is that we have established that open review period, certainly to include additional assessments in the menu. We do actively review and do our own internal research so that we can make the best decision and the best recommendation on behalf of the CSDE and the state board to move those menus forward. Listed here was the previous open review timeline from July 21 to September to 21. And as a reminder, the state board approved the menu for use commencing July 1 of 23. We recently brought forward 2 assessments that were on the current menu that you can use. We brought those forward after additional research. And so you'll notice that Acadience Reading and Dibble's 6th edition now appears on the menu for July 1, 2023. And we will have our next open review period open up late summer, early fall for the following year. Again, just in the essence and the hope to continue to add to that list as we learn more, because we know that everyone else is doing research and trying to bring forward additional assessments that help you and help our learners. Thank you, Melissa.
All right, so thank you. So here now are more questions around the curriculum models programs. So here are a few. What is the plan for funding? Will there be state level pricing consortiums? Are we starting in kindergarten and moving up, or are we starting out with K-3? So for those who may not have been here in our first time together, I did put the link in that goes right directly to the webpage that we update with current information when there is information around the funding, etc. So let me start with the state level pricing consortium. We do not have that kind of relationship with the publishers, so we will not be offering state level pricing consortiums. What is the plan for funding? The legislators kindly granted around $20 million to be utilized, and what we're doing is we're currently in the process of completing a grant process whereby districts will be granted money from these ARPA funds to assist with the legislation and the lift of purchasing programs, curricula, and professional learning, which we know is so important to have. Now, the question about are we starting with kindergarten and moving up or starting with K-3, that is a district decision. So it is a local decision as to how you're going to be implementing and rolling this out. Once again, if you have further questions on that, we can tell you that. But implementation for K-3 does have to begin by July 1, 2023, unless you are requesting the extension or requesting the waiver as we discussed in our first webinar together. Here are the programs that did meet Connecticut expectations. The next question, are these reading programs phonics or basal? So to help answer this, per legislation, these programs and curriculum models must be evidence-based, scientifically based, and focused on competency in the areas that you see posted here: the oral language, phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, rapid automatic name or letter name fluency, and reading comprehension. So very much a core comprehensive model, curriculum model, and or program. Now, the question about the phonics or basals, it really depends on your definition of basal. These programs and curricula are not like the basals that I used when I started teaching second grade. Those were very clunky. The books often did not meet the reading needs of the students, and we were very frustrated by that. This is very new. These materials offer materials for all learners. So teachers can use them for students who are below reading level, above reading level, on reading level, those who have special needs, etc. If you're looking through that lens of basal, once again, these are core, like I said, core comprehensive. The texts are grade appropriate and worthy of the student's attention. The lessons allow for that high quality differentiation, varied means of accessing the content, helping teachers meet the diverse needs, like I said, of students. These provide various ways of demonstrating learning as well. And the lessons and the tasks have very clear purpose, and the materials offer guidance to teachers and resources to assist in building teachers' knowledge. Some more questions here. Whoops, I think I went too fast with my clicker. All right, will the center be sharing the rubrics and documentation for each of the approved programs? Is there data available from districts who employed the programs? And are you expecting other programs to be added to the list? So here are our answers. So as you know from our first webinar, districts and publishers submitted their curriculum models or programs for review in May. We had a team, the core review team, who utilized the rubric that was found not only in the submission materials, but also we utilized, like I said, in the review. We had 53 submissions in total and at least 2 reviewers of each of the 16-member team. In total, 25 curriculum models and programs were reviewed. So this means that oftentimes districts submitted the same program to be reviewed. So District A and District B may have both submitted the same program, but each submission got 2 reviews. Then data were triangulated using other credible, comprehensive websites as well as states. So looking into their work there. Then the process was audited again internally, and we analyzed the data collected to come up with these. So will the center be sharing? If you're interested, I did pose this in our first as well. If you want to see the actual rubrics and the scores given by the reviewers, please email me and I will gladly share those with you. Many of you took me up on that offer last time, and I encourage you to do it again. Are there data available? So we don't have data available here in Connecticut. However, we have engaged Hanover Research, and they are completing research by looking into other states who have been using, and districts there, who have been using the programs on the list. Also, please know that as part of the submission, the publishers and the districts had to include research based on that program and or curriculum. So trying to make sure I answered all the questions. Oh, are we expecting other programs? There could be programs or curriculum models that bubble up during the waiver process. And if indeed they do and they're approved, those will be posted to expand in the near future. All right, more questions. Will the center be sharing the rubrics and documentation for each? Like I said, if you're interested, you can please notify me. And is there a list? So yes, you saw this question before, but now we're going to be talking about the reading programs. So is there a list of all considered reading programs that have been evaluated and specific information about why certain ones are not on the list? Yes. So what I'm going to do is share with you now all of the programs that were submitted. And remember, some districts and publishers may have submitted the same. So for American Reading Company, the first one, for example, the publisher submitted and we had a district submit. So we reviewed both of their materials to at least 2 reviewers for each. So here are some that were. Here are more. So this is all the list. And we had 2 districts who put forward their curricula for review as well. Whoops, I got that trigger finger, sorry. All right, so you also asked, why didn't things make it on the list? Why were programs and curricula not on the list? So what I provided here are some summaries for each of the ones that did not make it to the list and why. A lot of times, so for example, I know many districts use Heggerty and Foundations. The reason Heggerty and Foundations did not make this list is because they're not a core comprehensive. So like I was saying before, they don't have all of those elements that are required by the legislation. None of this means that they're bad. It just means that they did not meet the expectations of the legislation to be incorporated into the meets expectation list. So here you'll see this. Once again, you will be provided with this, or they'll be posting the PowerPoint, we'll be sending it, so you can have more time to really look through each one. You'll see that we did look through many lenses while reviewing. And I just want to remind people too, I've been getting a lot of questions about supplemental materials, saying, well, if we go with one of the core programs, may we keep Heggerty and Foundations? Absolutely. Supplemental materials are not legislated. Supplemental materials are local control. And if you feel like there are students who are needing more than what's being provided, absolutely, please do supplement. Once again, the core, these programs and curricula that bubbled up to the top are very comprehensive, so you may not find the need to put in these other programs as well, but that's something that you will have to explore based on your student needs.
I think just another reminder that we will be sharing the slide deck so that people can read the descriptions that are listed here.
All right, some more questions. There are questions around the equitable piece and, excuse me, like the classroom, my office does fade. So there are questions about the cultural responsiveness. How were the curriculum model programs that are on the approved list vetted for equity and cultural responsiveness? And also many of you emailed and had questions around the study that identified some of these programs as having concerns around race. I would like to advance here. So for cultural responsiveness, we purposely included evidence the first time around. So in May, we required the publishers and the districts to give us information, us meaning the core review team in the state, information about the texts, and looked into the various cultures and perspectives, as well as looking at the questions as tasks, and do they promote cultural affirmation and value diverse identities, backgrounds, and perspectives in alignment with the Connecticut State Board of Education position statement on culturally responsive education. That position statement was created from our very important partners, and it's something that we follow every day. So we just wanted to mention that. We ensured that it was aligning to that. Please know that the core reviewers did agree They found some evidence, not a high preponderance, but some evidence indicating high quality of questions and tasks that promote cultural affirmation and value the diverse identities, backgrounds, and perspectives. So this means while there's some evidence of high quality, there was also insufficiencies, and the reviewers determined it'd be necessary to supplement. So districts, it's really important that while you're reviewing these materials, you're looking to see, does this meet our needs? Does this meet the needs of our students and families? And also that importance of professional learning. It's so important that we're providing professional learning for educators to give them the tools necessary to address inclusiveness and the culturally responsive representation. It's imperative that the regional and local boards of education design and implement a professional learning system that's grounded in the Connecticut standards. As a matter of fact, the State Department of Education worked very closely with Learning Forward years ago and many stakeholders to create the professional learning standards. And we were one of the first states to include cultural responsiveness. Learning Forward has now changed their standards to include that and really focus on it. But just point of interest, we in Connecticut were one of the first. So it's really important here to support our educators in choosing and utilizing coherent, culturally responsive, evidence, scientifically based literacy curriculum models, programs, practices, strategies, and structures. This legislation has really opened the doors. We are talking, I've been at the state now almost 7 years. No, I'm sorry, it has been 7 years now. I missed my anniversary. For 7 years. And the literacy is really at the forefront more than at any point in time. So this legislation really moved forward and opened doors. And part of these conversations include exactly what this slide is about and exactly what all of you were bringing forward. We need to really strengthen our culturally responsive, evidence-based knowledge, skills, and mindsets of educators. It's a key equity lever to improving student literacy outcomes. So now to the next question. All right. There were many questions around the waiver process. So what we did is we condensed them here onto the slide, and then we'll be answering them in the next few slides. So who will review the waiver submissions? How long will it take? If the waiver is not accepted, what is the next steps? If it extends past June, because as we know, July 1st is the date by legislation that districts need to have a program in place or have the extension in place. If the review process goes past June, like I said, if the waiver is approved, will there be another review process? If you're granted the waiver, how long does that last? If it's denied, will you be given feedback? If the waiver was previously submitted and denied, can the district reapply? And is it based on the success of the program shown with data? And will there be a scoring rubric? So starting with the bottom, the scoring rubric will be let me start by saying we are still in the process of developing and finalizing the waiver review process. However, one of the pieces that will be included is the same rubric that was utilized the first time in May. So when you click on this link of the application, you'll find it in there. I want to say it's on page 7. And then there's another one that's been filled out as kind of a template. But this will continue to be utilized by the reviewers. So as I said, the waiver process continues to be refined. We will have literacy experts reviewing. The process will include this document, and the waiver application process closes February 28th. Each waiver we anticipate will take multiple hours to review. It took a long time in May to really give each submission the time that it needs to really go over it and be really responsive to it. This time, as the commissioner has been saying, there will be back and forth. If the reviewers have questions about the submission, they will be reaching out to the districts. So all this does add up to time. We don't know how much time. This is a new process for all of us. But like I said, we want to give due diligence to each of the submissions. Districts will be receiving review results. We don't know exactly what that looks like yet, but you will be receiving results. There was a question about revising the waiver applications based on feedback. We're not certain, once again, where that's going to be, but through the whole process of review, there really shouldn't be a reason to then take it back and revise and send it back in again. If the review reveals that the submission is not an approved curriculum model or program for Connecticut, districts may ask for the one-year extension to then move forward and explore the approved curriculum models or program. At this time, this is the only waiver process that is actually scheduled, and per legislation, the extension of time request does not include student achievement data. There was a question about when we ask for the extension, do we need to show student data? No, not at this time. All right, I'm trying to make sure I answer all these questions here. We have more.
And Melissa,
Yes, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yes, Irene.
no, that's okay. You're on a roll, so I apologize. But I think it's just important, since we're on the waiver, that we did engage many different interest groups to inform the waiver process. And certainly CAPS was a tremendous leader. So representing all superintendents, we took a lot of that feedback into consideration and revised that waiver application and the process so that it really did support this process in a better way, and it wasn't incredibly onerous, I think, is one of the lead things we wanted to get at. So I just wanted to make sure that we said that again, that we did engage many different interest groups to inform the existing waiver process.
Thank you so much. That's so important. Every step of what we've done has been informed not only by our stakeholders, but also by the council, the Reading Implementation Council, who works closely with me here at the center. So thank you so much. And like I tell districts, I was meeting with one again this morning, it's so important that we have these conversations, because then your information helps to feed processes and procedures here that align with the legislation. So thank you so much, Irene. You're absolutely right. It's so important to say thank you to those who really assisted in this process. So what are the consequences and how will you track for compliance? So this was an interesting question. It was asked a couple times here and in other places. Please know that, as I'm sure you know very well as boards of education and superintendents, that every board member and every superintendent has a duty to comply with the law. And the center is legislated to collect the curriculum and program chosen by each of the local and regional boards of education, not later than September 1st of 2023. So the center will be collecting and publicly reporting that as it's stated in the legislation, and also biannually thereafter, conducting independent random reviews. Also, under Connecticut law, if there's a indication or reasonable cause to believe that a local or regional board of education has failed or is unable to make reasonable provisions to implement the law, then the local government body or its agent responsible for such failure or inability, the state shall investigate and make recommendations to our state board. Additionally, when submitting grant applications to the State Department of Education, many districts do receive grant monies in the form of the title funds, Perkins funds. There are various state bilingual, etc. But when you're filling those out, the federal and the state funds, districts must attest in the EGMS system that they are following the law. They're following all of the statutes, regulations, program plans, and applications. So hopefully that assists with that question. We have more questions here. This is really around that professional learning and the coaching. As you know, in the legislation, that is addressed all throughout. Knowing, once again, the importance of supporting and lifting our educators. As someone who was a coach, I have to say, I think coaching is really important. And I really saw teachers blossom and grow from these kinds of supports. So how will we address the root of the problem, the teacher knowledge and the training? And will there be coaching support offered for non-alliance districts? And what PD from the state is available? So here is a slide that shares that some of our professional learning. There are more professional learning opportunities online to do various webinars and get supports, but here are some. We have the Connecticut Literacy Model Strategy. This is one for Alliance and Opportunity Districts. It's been going on for years now, and our partners are University of Connecticut, Hill for Literacy, and Literacy How. Going on to ReadCon. ReadCon will be kicking off hopefully this spring. We are in the contract process. This is for all districts. It's school teams of teachers, special education teachers, multilingual learner teachers, our grade level K3 teachers, to increase their expertise in the science of reading and those necessary foundational skills, and also to support with the reading survey and give them training on that to align to the professional learning that you're providing as a result of that, as a result of the reading survey. I think my mind's going faster than my mouth today because I want to make sure that all of your questions are answered in the time we have. And just so you know, these are all free to districts as well. So we have the master class. So the Science of Reading Masterclass, that our partner is CAPS, and the audience is the district-based teams. Once again, the purpose is to develop local capacity for the science of reading. All of these include a coaching aspect as well. Then WestEd reached out to us in the networked improvement community, and what they're doing is they're working with 5 of our smaller districts that have one K3 inclusive school who indicated that they wanted to move forward with one of the approved programs, either by July 1st or with the extension of 1 year, and they're being engaged in a school improvement process. So here are just some of the professional learning, but I also have to note that professional learning is also the responsibility, obviously, of districts and local and regional boards of education. So yes, we at the state level are providing professional learning for free. However, we're doing that in partnership, thinking that you are doing the same as well. So if you are interested in any of these opportunities, if you're an Alliance or an Opportunity District and you're interested in the literacy model, please contact me. If you are any district at all interested in ReadCon, these are online modules with some online coaching, in-person kind of supports, or the Science of Reading Masterclass. For the Science of Reading Masterclass, please contact Irene. If you forget, contact me. We're always talking and working together. So the WestEd opportunity is closed, but if it opens up again and you're interested, definitely reach out. So
I would just share, Melissa, because I know we'll get the question, will there be another one? We are currently working to see if we can actually offer a 3rd cohort, so more to come. But yes, you can reach out to me if you are interested and we can add you to the list.
Perfect, perfect. Thank you. All right. And I think that's it. Here is just to share again for the center, what is the why, the how, and the what. The why is so every student by the end of grade 3 is reading at or above grade level. How, the center and the council will be leading change and bridging research to support our Connecticut stakeholders in increasing effective literacy teaching and learning. And the what is building this comprehensive literacy system based on those culturally responsive that we talked about practices, evidence-based teaching and learning literacy practices, strategies, and structures. So hopefully we spoke quickly enough to allow time for questions from the field. I think I need to breathe and take a sip of my water. So Patrice, turn it over to you.
Thanks so much. You did a great job answering so many of the questions that had been posed previously. I'm going to check with Will Marie and see if there are questions that people have put in the Q&A.
Okay, so our first question is, can you clarify how are you defining comprehensive reading model?
Sure. So I can go back through the slides here. We're really, since this is legislative, we're really leaning on the legislation as well as looking at that document that I referenced around the important elements of having that comprehensive program. Pardon me as I flip back. Here we go. So that's how we are defining that core comprehensive. Is there another question?
Yes, so our next question is, what is an example of an approved curriculum model?
Sure. So looking at the list, we have, let me see if I can find the list to make this a little. There are various ones that are listed that are curriculum. So for example, the L education materials are curriculum. They call themselves curriculum versus programs. You can do the next question as I'm trying to find that slide without making everyone nauseous.
I think it's slide 10.
There we go. So something like an L education is a curriculum model.
Okay. Our next question is, can you clarify, were the actual programs and materials reviewed? It sounds like you're saying that the documents that were submitted by publishers and or educators were reviewed.
Oh, thank you for clarifying. So within the documents were multiple links that we were able to access. Publishers gave us special permission and passwords so that we could get in. And once again, the we is a collective we of the entire core review process, and really explore all of the materials, the teacher manuals, the books, the lesson plans, workbooks, whatever was included, we were able to have access to those. So thank you for your clarifying question. And if you are, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, no, it is a great question. So those publishers did provide us with demo accounts so that we could actually be a user and understand how to navigate those platforms that they were providing and then actually see all the concrete resources.
And just so people know, American Reading Corporation, Imagine Learning, Open Up, and Savvis, they all reference themselves as curriculum models. The others call themselves programs. And if, oh, I know what I was gonna say. If you are submitting a waiver, just make sure that those links open. So if you are including links, because the reviewers will not have time to, they want to click on every link, but they will not have time to ask permission to get into every link. So they have to be accessible without any kind of password protection on there so that our reviewers can click, open, look, move on.
Okay. The next question is, why is there a waiver if only the 7 programs meet the criteria?
The legislators and stakeholders felt that it was important to have a waiver process, not only for, I think one of the big reasons is that by having this review process in May, all programs and curricula out there were not reviewed, only those submitted. So this waiver process provides another opportunity for programs and curricula to be reviewed and brought forward as approved programs and curricula. Plus, it gave districts an opportunity to show what they're doing and to provide time for them to really review and look at what they're currently having in place, the student data, and what strategy they have in place. Did you want to add something, Irene? Did you unmute?
I think first and foremost, as you said, that it was legislated. So it was in that legislation, and so it's incumbent upon us to provide for that process for districts to be able to submit that waiver.
Well, Marie, thank you so much for going through these questions and posing them. It's very helpful.
Absolutely. Next question is, given the nature of staffing at the SDE, can you tell us how you can possibly review the mountains of paperwork that is certain to be submitted between now and July 1st?
That keeps me up at night.
Yeah, I was going to say, so thank you for recognizing the team, and certainly because we have been very vocal, as has the commissioner, in what our staffing situation is right now. But I think it's important to say that she is actively advocating for us, and we have been, if you've been watching, seeing the postings through social media. So we are hiring, and but I think, Melissa, you said it best, that we're developing that process and who the team is for the reviews, which not only includes internal folks, but external partnerships. So that is the work that's actively underway to ensure that we have the right team to complete the review of the waivers. So, but thank you for recognizing that. You see Melissa in every single space, so she is a single person moving forward with this work, but we are actively hiring, and certainly the commissioner is doing that work as well.
Thank you, Irene. And thank you to whomever that was. Appreciate it.
We'll give it a little more time, see if folks have other questions. Okay, going back to a question that was asked previously, does the legislature only approved these 7 programs? I guess they want to clarify.
Sure. So I'm going to go back to the slide. There was a process, and that process you can actually find here. Let's see if I can click on and show you my screen.
But while you're speaking, or trying to find rather, Melissa,
Sure.
the legislation outlines that they charge the CSDE with reviewing and approving at least 5 of the programs. And so this process that Melissa has pulled up was created and developed and followed, where it revealed more than 5, because again, it said at least 5. So Melissa, if you want to continue with your thought. Yes, we can see your screen, yes.
So this website that I did, once again, link into the PowerPoint, you can see information that's updated. You can see the process that's explained here with the guidelines. Here are some of the others that we triangulated our data, as I spoke about. So not only was it reviewing with Connecticut reviewers, but then also looking to see around the US how the programs that were bubbling up to the top, did they bubble up to the top as well?
And Will
And
Marie,
then
can you
here-
repeat the question? So I want to make sure that we are answering it clearly.
So it was, they want to know that the legislature only approved the 7 programs.
So it wasn't the legislation, again, what was articulated is that the CSDE will review and approve at least 5. So in what was shared, so those lists that Melissa had shared, that's what was received. And through that evaluation of the programs and curriculum models that were received, we reviewed those and it yielded 7. I'm sorry, I'm not the right number. Yes, 7 of those that came to the top.
Correct. And then you'll see here that the CSDE had to do it in consultation with the Reading Leadership Implementation Council. And this is another legislative council who works with me currently at the center and helps to guide the center. So many of our members were actually reviewers. These members were also legislated. So certain senators and representatives, the governor, the commissioner, they appointed various people to be on this council. And many of them were
And
reviewers
just
as
to
well.
underscore that we reviewed all of the submissions, and from those submissions is what it yielded to get to that list.
Correct.
So it's not necessarily the legislation, it's what the evaluation process yielded.
Right. The legislators, the senators, reps, they had nothing to do with the actual programs, and none of them were reviewers of the programs and curriculum.
Right.
Yeah, these are great questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So our next question is it possible that after the waiver process is complete, that additional programs will be added?
So yes, so right now with the waiver process going on, there could be programs that bubble up there to become part of the Connecticut's approved program list.
I would just say it may not happen automatically. It would require additional review and evaluation. So we will keep a list of those that may not have come forward before and might warrant additional review. So it won't be an immediate as a close to the waiver and the close of that review. It may take more time. So I think that's important to share.
Thank you.
Next question. Can you explain the implementation expectations again? Do districts have to roll out new curriculum in K-3 next year, or can districts phase in starting with K or K through 1?
So the legislation does say that the approved model curriculum and program have to be implemented by July 1, 2023. It does not go into details as to how that implementation occurs. If you did ask for a 1-year extension or indicate that on the survey, then you would have that additional year to implement based on resources, etc.
Thank you. Do you anticipate that any waiver submissions for core comprehensive curriculum models will be accepted?
It's hard to anticipate that when even in May, we weren't sure how that was going to end up. So it's much the same, like I said, in May, where we went in and we used the documentation that we had and reviewed and then looked to other places, and those came up.
Not sure we can speculate on that until we actually close the waiver process. So,
and actually start reviewing.
right.
But we're not going in with a mindset of so many will be accepted or not accepted. It's really looking at each one and looking at the evidence there.
Thank you.
Could I just go back to for clarification on the previous question about the rollout of K3? Because I think I heard you say earlier in the presentation that it would be a local decision as to whether you would be implementing in K1, 2, and 3 in the first year, or if you could start in kindergarten and then build from there. And I think that's what the previous question was looking for clarification on.
I'm just looking for my, oh, here it is, the law. What I'll do is I'll read the law to you. And it does say for each school year commencing July 1, 2023, and each school year thereafter, each local and regional Board of Education shall implement a reading curriculum model or program for grades pre-kindergarten to grade 3 inclusive that has been reviewed and recommended pursuant to Section 395 of this Act. So we have not, I think the intent is that it should be in place pre-kindergarten to grade 3. Once again, pre-K did not bubble up at this time of having programs that met expectations. One's on the list of being continued to be reviewed. So I don't want it to be misunderstood that I'm saying you only have to do 1 year at a time, because that's not accurate. But it does say shall implement a reading curriculum model program for grades pre-K to grade 3 by that July 1, 2023. And not being a lawyer, I don't really want to delve deeper into that. But I shall read, like I said, I read the legislation to you.
So our next question is, how has the state considered supporting those that have submitted a financial waiver, specifically rural communities with minimal support for increase in Board of Ed budgets?
Sure. So thank you so much. I've actually been meeting with a lot of our rural districts. As you saw with the West Ed opportunity, I deliberately focused on the school systems that had only one school of K3, knowing that oftentimes these districts, just based on numbers, do not always have access to the monies and supports that other districts may have access to. So please know that all districts are in our minds right now. We are currently working on the grant in which we will be working on getting out to districts, where districts will be allocated certain funds and then filling out in EGMS the ARPA, it's a designated ARPA grant form, because these are ARPA funds, which are different than ARPESR and titles and all the other different kinds of grants we have. They're federal grants. So keeping in mind all districts and trying to lift them all. And once again, the legislators were very generous and did provide funding. And we're going to try to get that out to the districts to support them with their approved curriculum models and programs as they implement that.
Are there any additional questions, Will Marie?
I'm going through to see if we answered all the questions. And
thank you so much again. And while you're doing that, I just want to mention that, you know, Irene had referenced the commissioner, and please know that the commissioner is very aware of the situation and the funding, and with as well the date timelines for the legislation. She did share with the superintendents at one of the Friday meetings that we have that she is working with those timelines and working with legislators on that, as well as the money. It was really important to her that all districts do have access to the funding that we were provided. I just wanted to give her another little shout out there. We greatly appreciate her support. And although I currently don't have a team in the center, I definitely have a team with my colleagues. So Irene, thank you so much for your partnership and help along the way. Ajit has been another amazing. Mike, our lawyer. I mean, I could go on and on, Laura, Stefan. Everyone has just been amazing and helpful, and especially the commissioner. So, and especially Irene.
Okay, so we do have one more question, and I know we're scheduled to end at 1 p.m., so we'll go through this.
Okay.
Last question. Can you go back to the slide about the professional learning? Also looking for
Sure.
support for administration in the implementation of systemic SOR.
Sure. So pardon me as I flick through fast. So ReadCon is something too that the administrators can take part in. It is for school-based teams, and we encourage administrators, principals to be part of that, as you can see here. That is not yet started, but if you're interested, definitely email me your interest so I can put you on the list. Irene, do you want to talk about the SOAR Masterclass?
Certainly, I can, and hopefully we will be able to launch a third cohort. But this is designed for your district leaders and for superintendents, building administrators, and all literacy leaders. And that's what makes this different. So how do you take stock of where you are and develop that district-wide literacy plan, and looking at the out years, not just the year of implementation, but then the out years to get to 100% of the outcomes that you have identified in district, and how to align that work with your existing strategic operating plan. So that is very at that high level, and it is devoted to your district and building administrators, as it says here, the district literacy leads. And it is to develop their capacity so that you can be equipped with those skills to then develop the capacity of your teacher colleagues. So again, hopeful that we'll be able to do a third cohort. I've already received 4 emails of those that want to be on the list as a result, I'm sure, of this webinar. So thank you for that. But what we're doing too from the masterclass is taking notes. So what we're learning and listening to, that may inform other opportunities for professional learning for those district and literacy leaders. Because it's not just about the teaching of, right? It's the leading too.
Right, and building those essential structures and having those in place. Yep,
right,
absolutely.
because our teacher colleagues, in order for them to be successful in this work, there needs to be a clear structure and infrastructure in place so that they are successful. Agreed.
Great, thank you so much. That is all the time we have today. Patrice?
Thank you so much, Will Marie, Irene, and Melissa. I know that there will continue to be questions, and we'll make every effort to try and communicate, not necessarily another webinar, but as information comes out from the department, we'll make sure that that is available to districts. As an aside, I would note that this issue of the implementation of the science of reading has come up at every legislative breakfast that we've been holding around the state. So it is a conversation that CABE is having with legislators around whether or not it is feasible for all districts to be able to implement the legislation by the current statutory deadline. That's not an issue that for the department, that's a conversation that we are having directly with legislators, but I want people to be aware that those conversations are taking place. So with that, thank you all for joining us, and we hope that you have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.